Something's off with the bread aisle. You can feel it even if you haven't said it out loud. The texture's different, the smell's weird, and some loaves now stay soft for over 20 days without molding. That's not baking, that's engineering. In the past few months, hundreds of bakery items were quietly recalled. One brand had glass fragments baked right into the crust. Another forgot to list hazelnuts, which nearly sent people with allergies to the hospital. And one major facility had to pull close to 2 million loaves because of listeria, the kind that puts elderly folks in intensive care. Yet these brands are still everywhere. In school lunches, in hospital trays, in your kitchen right now. What's more disturbing, nobody's talking about it. Until now. We're going through 7 bread brands Americans keep trusting and exposing exactly why that trust may be misplaced. Keep watching. Only 2 are actually safe to eat. Number 1. Upper Crust Bakery, LP. Upper Crust Bakery, LP got hit with a federal recall in July 2025 after the FDA confirmed multiple batches of their sourdough hoagie rolls might contain pieces of glass. Not hard crust, not burnt seeds, glass. Sharp enough to injure the mouth throat or even worse if swallowed. Over 60,000 units were distributed across stores in more than 15 states, including major chains like H-E-B and Kroger. These weren't niche health food loaves. They were mainstream, priced for families, packaged to look artisanal. But behind the paper wrapping was a bakery that lost control of its production line. The contamination came from a broken conveyor shield during packaging. But instead of stopping the line, Upper Crust kept shipping. The broken glass wasn't discovered until after complaints started showing up. Chipped teeth, bleeding gums, and at least one ER visit from a customer in Texas. That's what triggered the FDA investigation. FDA. No public apology was issued. No statement on their website. They relied entirely on the government bulletin to spread the word. So if you didn't scroll through FDA.gov in July, you had no idea what you or your kids might be biting into. And it's not their first strike. In 2022, the same bakery had a smaller recall over metal shavings in its white bread line, but it barely made the news. They fixed the equipment, but clearly not the culture, the unsettling part. The same upper crust products are still being stocked under different store brands. The name might change, but the factory doesn't. No warning on the shelf, no label on the bag. It's not just about bad luck. It's about what happens when safety checks become checkboxes, when cutting losses matters more than cutting risk. You're not buying bread at a discount expecting to roll the dice on injury. But with Upper Crust, that's exactly what you're doing. And if they can't be bothered to put out a real statement after sending out 60,000 loaves with broken glass, it says everything about how they see the people eating their food. Number 2. Upper Crust Bakery LP. Upper Crust's sourdough hoagie rolls are now pushing $4 per pack in most grocery stores. For what looks like a simple loaf that price tags suggest quality care and some trace of integrity. But what you're actually paying for is a brand that won't even tell you where their bread is made. Most people assume they're buying from a local bakery or a trusted national supplier. In reality, Upper Crust operates as a shadow brand. No official website, no product transparency. Their name rarely appears on the packaging. Instead, their bread gets rebranded under private labels for stores like H-E-B Albertsons and even some regional health markets. That kind of setup makes accountability nearly impossible. When something goes wrong, you're not even sure who to blame. You can't trace the origin, can't verify ingredient sourcing, and definitely can't find a phone number to call. All you have is a barcode and a best by date. What's more frustrating? The ingredient labels are all over the place. In some stores, their multi-grain loaf is labeled as clean, but the same product elsewhere lists calcium propionate and azotic carbonamide, the latter banned in Europe because of potential respiratory risks. One batch is advertised as non-GMO. The next batch, same shelf, carries no such claim. So which one is it? Back in 2023, an investigation by a food safety watchdog found that Upper Crust was sourcing dough from multiple third-party facilities, some of which were not even FDA inspected. That kind of supply chain chaos isn't just sloppy, it's reckless. And while other bakeries moved toward more transparent models in the past 2 years, Upper Crust stayed quiet. No upgrades, no audits, just cheaper dough and higher prices. Consumers are now stuck trying to make choices without real information. You're reading labels trusting what you see, but behind the scenes, it's a patchwork operation with zero consistency. This isn't about fancy nutrition. It's about knowing the basics, where your food comes from, who made it, and whether they even care. And right now, upper crust's biggest strength is hiding in plain sight. If your bread costs nearly $4 and still gives you more questions than answers, that's not premium. That's deception. And that's exactly why this brand stays on the list. Number 3, Hillside Orchard Farms. And just when you think the worst thing hiding in your bread might be a stray preservative, here comes Hillside Orchard Farms, labeling loaves as vegan and allergen-free while sneaking in undeclared egg ingredients. Not suggested, not cross-contaminated. Fully undisclosed whole egg powder in products marked as safe for plant-based diets. That's not a slip-up. That's a landmine for anyone with a food allergy. The recall was issued in August 2025 after an independent food safety lab flagged inconsistencies in allergen reporting. Over 25,000 units were impacted. But this wasn't some fringe product sitting in a back corner co-op. It was their classic honey wheat stocked in national chains across 7 states. Families bought it assuming it was clean. Schools served it in cafeterias. Allergy-conscious shoppers chose it because the label said so. And when the truth came out, no press conference, no accountability, just a single-page government alert and an empty promise that steps are being taken. This is not about the egg, it's about the silence. Hillside Orchard Farms built their brand on health-conscious packaging, feeding into the trust of people who read every label twice. Folks with autoimmune issues, parents of kids with allergies, elderly shoppers managing strict diets. That kind of trust doesn't get rebuilt with a quiet recall and a shrug. Even worse, this isn't their first stumble. Back in 2020, the company was cited for inconsistent nutritional disclosures, with sodium levels measured at nearly double the amount printed on pack. They promised reform. They promised third-party oversight. But here we are 5 years later, and now they're failing the most basic rule in food manufacturing: tell the truth about what's inside. All of this adds up to one thing: you can't eat peace of mind. And if the label says safe while the bread is anything but, then it's not a bakery you want near your plate. So if Hillside Orchard Farms is still on your grocery list, it might be time to cross that name off, because the next mistake they hide might hit a lot harder than just a mislabeled loaf. Number 4. FGF Brands. FGF Brands makes their bread look like it belongs in a high-end bakery. Clean packaging. Buzzwords like artisan baked and stone fired. You'd never guess that behind the branding is a company flagged by labor watchdogs for serious worker violations at their production facilities in Ontario. We're not talking about late paychecks or messy schedules. We're talking about employees packing bread in overheated, poorly ventilated conditions, some working 12-hour shifts without proper breaks. In March 2025, a joint labor investigation exposed the company's repeated failure to follow provincial safety standards. Multiple employees came forward detailing cases of heat exhaustion and respiratory irritation from flour dust, and even one documented hospitalization due to unsafe working temperatures during a production surge. And while this didn't directly affect the bread's nutritional content, it revealed something deeper: a company willing to cut corners where no one's looking. Bread is food, but it's also trust. You assume that the hands behind your loaf are working in safe, regulated environments. When a company disregards its own workers, how much care are they really putting into the product that ends up on your plate? And FGF's problems didn't stop with labor. Just months before that report dropped, their Neon products sold under private labels were pulled from major grocery chains in the US due to mold contamination. The recall wasn't massive, but the timing combined with what followed told a bigger story. They scaled production fast, pushed product wide, and quality started slipping through the cracks. And here's what really frustrates consumers: you don't even know when you're buying from them. Their products are packaged under names like Stonefire, President's Choice, and even some store-brand flatbreads at Costco. It's all FGF, no clear label, No public-facing accountability. When a company can't guarantee the health of its workers or the integrity of its distribution, it leaves you guessing at every bite. You shouldn't have to guess with food. You shouldn't wonder if that soft nain in your freezer was made in a factory where people weren't allowed to take water breaks. Trust doesn't come from fancy words on a label. It comes from consistency, transparency, and a record of treating both food and people with care. And FGF, they've failed on both fronts. So if you've got their flatbread on your counter or their buns in your fridge, it might be time to move on. Number 5. Bimbo Bakeries. Now we shift from shadow brands to the corporate giant sitting in plain sight. Bimbo Bakeries. You've seen their products stacked high in every supermarket. Brownberry, Sara Lee Thomas's, Arnold Entenmann's, all under the same roof. But behind that empire is a bread machine running so fast, it barely has time to check what's coming out the other side. In late June 2025, Bimbo Bakeries issued a recall affecting more than 90,000 units of its soft wheat and honey whole grain lines due to what they called a foreign material incident. That's corporate speak for small bits of plastic were baked into your sandwich bread. The company blamed a malfunctioning dough divider, but didn't clarify how long the issue went unnoticed. This isn't just about what ended up in the loaf. It's about the pace at which these industrial bakeries operate. Millions of loaves every week pumped out in facilities where speed often wins over precision. That's how plastic gets missed. That's how people end up chewing on what feels like packaging foam. And if it were a one-time fluke, that'd be bad enough. But Bimbo's track record keeps growing. In 2023, the company paid out a settlement after a class action lawsuit over misleading whole grain labeling on one of its top-selling bread lines. Products advertised as made with whole grains were found to contain more enriched white flour than actual whole grains. It wasn't illegal, it was just dishonest. That's the theme here, not always dangerous, but consistently deceptive. Labels that stretch the truth, quality checks that miss the mark. A company this big should be setting the standard. Instead, it's playing marketing games with families trying to eat better. And when you scale this wide across brands, across stores, across entire grocery chains, even small failures turn into big problems. Because it's not just one loaf. It's breakfast for 1 million homes, lunchbox bread for school kids, toast on the table for seniors trying to stick to a health plan. When the most trusted names in bread start cutting corners, who's left to trust Bimbo might dominate the shelf, but that doesn't mean they deserve your trust or your grocery money. Number 6. Kroger. From industrial giants to trusted grocers, the problems don't stop. Kroger, a name millions rely on, is now facing backlash over its store-brand bread lines that have been quietly reformulated with synthetic additives banned overseas. At the center of it all, their 100% whole wheat sandwich loaf, priced just under $3, but packed with potassium bromate, a dough conditioner flagged by the World Health Organization as a possible carcinogen. In early July 2025, an independent lab analysis commissioned by a consumer safety group confirmed detectable levels of the additive in Kroger-branded bread sold in 5 different states. The company's response? Silence. No reformulation, no clear labeling. No intention of pulling the product because in the US it's still technically allowed. This is the kind of loophole that chips away at public trust. You've got countries like the United Kingdom, Canada, and Brazil banning this ingredient outright. But Kroger's still sliding it into bread aimed at working families trying to shop smart and eat clean. That isn't just disappointing, it's infuriating. And here's the kicker. The same product is labeled differently depending on location. In some regions, they highlight no artificial preservatives. In others, it's made with simple ingredients. But that same bread tested positive for a chemical that's banned in over 30 countries. That kind of label switching isn't just misleading, it's manipulative. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being honest. And when one of the largest grocery retailers in America hides behind legal technicalities while ignoring global health standards, it forces shoppers into making decisions without real choice. Add to that their history of price inflation on basic goods, including bakery items, And you've got a brand selling low-cost bread at a premium risk. By the time you read the label, it's already too late. Because most people aren't Googling e-numbers in the grocery aisle, they're trusting what's printed on the bag. Kroger has the reach, the money, and the resources to do better. But right now, they're betting that no one's paying close enough attention. And that's exactly why their bread doesn't belong in your cart. Number 7. Tufayan Bakeries. And if you thought the issues were limited to mega corporations or private label deals, here comes Tufayan Bakeries, the family-owned name that built its reputation on pita and wraps now caught padding gluten-free claims with questionable manufacturing practices. In August 2025, an expose by a regional health watchdog revealed that Tufayan's gluten-free production facility wasn't truly isolated. Cross-contamination risks were high due to shared equipment with their traditional wheat lines. No sterilization window, no proper segregation, just a conveyor belt wash and a change in shift. For celiacs or anyone with gluten sensitivity, that's a recipe for inflammation pain or worse. And yet their gluten-free wraps were being sold nationally under claims that implied total safety, stocked at Walmart, Publix, and Target, with marketing aimed at health-conscious families and parents of children with dietary restrictions. That kind of branding only works when it's backed by airtight operations. But Tufayan skipped the basics. The problem runs deeper than just crumbs on a tray. After the report came out, internal documents showed that the bakery hadn't conducted third-party audits in over 2 years. That's not just lazy, it's reckless, especially for a brand that markets itself as trusted by generations and caters to sensitive consumers who rely on labels for their health. And what followed wasn't a fix, it was a deflection. The company doubled down on PR, claiming their standards were within industry norms, while quietly changing suppliers for several of their gluten-free ingredients. That shift alone speaks volumes. You don't make those kinds of changes unless something was off in the first place. This isn't about demonizing family-run brands. It's about holding them to the same level of scrutiny as the big players, because allergies don't care how big the bakery is. And when a brand like Tufayan cuts corners on the one promise that matters most to vulnerable shoppers, it's time to take a step back. Gluten-free should mean safe, not maybe, not sort of. Not we tried our best. And until Tufayan can guarantee that their wraps, their pitas, and their claims don't belong in your kitchen. After dragging through 7 names that turned bread into a gamble, it's almost strange to say this, but yes, there are still brands out there doing it right. Not perfect, not flashy, just honest, clean, and consistent. And when it comes to that rare balance of nutrition and integrity, Dave's Killer Bread holds its ground without cutting corners. Number 1. Dave's Killer Bread. For around $6 a loaf, you're not paying for smoke and mirrors. You're paying for real whole grains. No artificial preservatives, and a commitment to keeping labels readable without needing a magnifying glass or a degree in food chemistry. Their power seed and good seed lines are loaded with organic ingredients, packing in fiber and protein without drowning the formula in sugar or fillers. Even better, they've managed to scale up without selling out. Since being acquired by Flower Foods, most expected the usual downhill slide reformulations, cost-cutting, maybe even a drop in quality. But that didn't happen. Independent lab tests as recent as July 2025 confirmed that Dave's loaves still contain what the label promises: no bromates, no dough conditioners, no artificial coloring. Just bread, made well. And in an era when brands hide behind front-of-pack claims, Dave's keeps it blunt. They don't slap the word natural just to lure you in. They list exactly what's in the bag and what's not. That kind of straight-up communication is rare these days, and it speaks to a brand that actually respects the consumer's right to know. They're not pushing ancient grains because it's trendy. They're not selling a health version filled with synthetic fibers just to meet a target. They built their base by focusing on basics, whole grain, high nutrition, and zero junk. And they've stuck with it. It's hard to find a bread aisle where trust hasn't been broken. But Dave's Killer Bread earns its place on your counter the old-fashioned way by doing the work and letting the food speak for itself. No drama, no recalls, no fine print. Just a slice of something real and right now that's rarer than it should be. Number 2. Wonder Bread. So after combing through brands that either gambled with your health or your trust, sometimes both, it's only fair to end on a name that's been through the fire and came out stronger, because not every legacy brand has crumbled under pressure. Wonder Bread, believe it or not, has managed to hold its line. And in 2025, that counts for something. Now, is Wonder Bread fancy? No. Is it loaded with superfoods? Definitely not. But what it is consistent, and in today's chaotic food landscape that makes it a quiet standout. Here's the shocker. While other brands slap on the word whole grain while stuffing in additives and emulsifiers, Wonder's classic white and whole grain white options have actually gotten cleaner over the years. Reformulated in 2024 under stricter quality standards, they now contain no high fructose corn syrup, zero trans fats, and fewer processed conditioners than nearly all of their mass market competitors. It's not just about what's not in the bread. It's about what they've actually chosen to keep. The ingredient list is simple, legible, and free of the usual suspects like potassium bromate or calcium propionate ingredients banned or restricted elsewhere but still floating in too many US shelves. And despite being owned by Flour Foods, a giant in the baked goods industry, Wonder hasn't gone the route of cheap shortcuts. In fact, random spot checks by food safety watchdogs in spring 2025 showed Wonder Bread plants ranked above average in hygiene quality control and consistency. That's the kind of behind-the-scenes data you don't see on a label, but it matters. While other brands try to win you over with protein boosts or flashy oat crusts, Wonder just focuses on doing white bread the right way. And let's be real, for families watching, every dollar a loaf that holds up to peanut butter without falling apart and doesn't hide chemical garbage is a solid win. Wonder Bread isn't trying to be trendy. It's not chasing niche diets. It's just holding steady in a market full of chaos, and at under $3 a loaf, that's a wonder in itself. So here's the bottom line: the bread aisle isn't what it used to be. What looks soft, golden, and harmless on the outside could be hiding shortcuts, chemical fillers, or worse. You've got brands banking on your trust while quietly cutting costs, shaving corners, or slipping past regulations. But the good news, you're not stuck with those choices. You've seen the names to drop, and you've got two solid ones that still respect your plate. In a world where even bread comes with fine print, staying sharp is the only way to shop. Choose smart, read deep, and don't let your daily slice be the thing that breaks your health.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.